Abdi. I'm the East African liaison with the Seattle Police Department. And I've been with the department for the last almost 10 years now. And welcome to the East African Advisory Council. We're back to doing this event from community to community. You know, the last time we had one at the Ethiopian Community, we had, you know, a big turnout. Here we are today. And so we're going back to the same style of holding these events at a different community-based organizations. So we don't have any specific agenda today. It's just to meet and greet with you guys and introduce members of the community with the new chain of commands. And if there is any concern from the community, it's a platform to, you know, for them to hear from you guys. And as well, if there is any message from the department, they will be conveyed. In attendance here today are all our chain of commands, Assistant Chief Tyron Davis, Lieutenant Vuch, everybody knows him. He's been with the East African Advisory Council for so many years.
And my name is Lieutenant John Lamb. I'm the commander for the robbery and gun violence reduction.
All right. Oh, of course. My immediate supervisor, Sergeant Matthew Robertson as well. And with that being said, I would like to invite the Ethiopian Community Director, Sophia, to say a few words, you know, and then we'll move to the next part of the event.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Ethiopian Community in Seattle. We're really glad that we are here today. This discussion is really important to us. It's only about 10 days back that we had a discussion here with community members on gun violence. We have lost one too many of our community members to gun violence. So it's really an issue very close to our hearts and one we really want to collaborate with the SPD and try to address the problem. So we really believe that with discussions and with all of us working together, we can be able to address this problem. So thank you for being here again and give it over to Captain.
Yep. Thank you, Sophia. ያው በድጋሚ እንደምን ዋላችሁ። ለማታውቁኝ ሀብታሙ አብዲ ይባላለሁኝ። ለሲያትል ፖሊስ ዲፓርትመንት ነው የምሰራው። ላለፉት 10 ዓመታት ከዲፓርትመንቱ ጋር የምስራቅ አፍሪካ ኮሚኒቲዎች ተወካይ በመሆን እያገለገልኩ ነው ያለሁት። ዛሬ እዚህ ያለ ነው እንግዲህ የተለያዩ ችግሮች አሉ ኮሚኒቲ ውስጥ ወንጀልን በተመለከተ ዋናው የፖሊስ አመራር ዛሬ ከኛ ጋር ነው ያሉት። ማህበረሰቡ ውስጥ ያሉትን ችግሮች አንድ በአንድ እንወያያለን። ከእናንተ የምነሱ ጥያቄዎች ካሉ እነሱ ለማድመጥ ከነሱ ደግሞ ከዲፓርትመንቱ የሚተላለፍ መልእክት ካለ ከነሱ እናንተን ለመስማት የተዘጋጀ ፕሮግራም ነው። ስለዚህ ምንም አይነት ጥያቄ ካላችሁ ደህንነትን በተመለከተ ወንጀልን በተመለከተ ዛሬ መጠየቅ መብት አላችሁ። ቋንቋ ለማትችሉ የማስተርጎም አገልግሎት እንሰጣለን። እኔም አለው ሌሎችም አሉ ኮሚኒቲ። እንግዲህ እንኳን ደህና መጣችሁ ለማለት ፈልጋለሁ። አይቶ አይዛክ በትግረኛ ለዚህ ላሉ ወንድሞቻችን ባጭሩ
يعني كلكم سلام مرحبا سمي زغرة يا بحال محمركم إرترا نفسياتي من البعض بزنا يكون كنا تات قارتنا نيرنا جدا كم زين كلها هنا بحبار بعرة عين عبرنا دمعنا ترادينا كل زين زين هنا كوميونيتي كلها هنا صون حسب سنة حافظ الوصل دليل وسنة ولوني يعني اللي
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. All right. With that being said, I will directly, you know, give the stage to our chain of commands, you know, to say a few words and, you know, briefly introduce yourself to the community. Assistant Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Tyrone Davis. I currently serve as one of the assistant chiefs for the police department. I currently command the Special Operations Bureau. Real quick, that's just like our SWAT team, our hostage negotiation team, harbor unit, our arson bomb squad. So basically these units that are kind of a special response. What I like to always tell people, that's kind of my day job. You know, I do serve in another number of functions, and one of those is just really trying to stay engaged with community. This is my third meeting this week. This is something that I enjoy doing, is the opportunity to be able to stay connected with the community. I currently represent the Chief's office as well, as a liaison here to the East African American Advisory Council. So this is my introduction to the group. I do see a lot of familiar faces in here. Some of you know me for a while, know that I've been engaged in community for over 20 years. And so I'm just really appreciative that I'm here to meet with you. And this is your meeting. I can definitely talk about some of the things that we're doing related to gun violence. I think I'd rather like have everybody else kind of maybe give an introduction, or if you want me to kind of go into that, I can do that, and then we could pass the mic. Okay. So this is what I'll say. You know, I agree with everything that was been said so far in terms of we've just lost so much of our youth, so many people that have been affected by gun violence. Last year alone, we recovered over 1,500 guns, which is kind of an amazing statistic in a number of different ways. It's not something that we're proud of, but in one hand, we're glad that the officers out there working harder than ever. That is the most guns that we've recovered since we've been tracking this stat, since we started doing that in 2010. But obviously that's 1,500 guns too many. So one of the things we really want to work on is trying to stay effective with everything we can do to prevent that. You know, every time I go out to community, one of the things I always ask is that we do everything we can to secure guns, because I don't have the data exactly from a percentage standpoint. However, I do know that majority of those guns are stolen. So we really encourage and try to educate many of our community members to do what they can to secure their guns. If they own them, they should be in a safe. They shouldn't be left somewhere it can be accessed in case their home is burglarized, nor should they be left in vehicles. Again, you know, cars get broken into, and you know, that's where these kind of guns get stolen. I mean, usually later end up in the hands of the wrong people with bad intentions, right, to commit robberies, and some of the gun violence we've seen with the carjackings. I think the other thing that is really, really concerning is the gun violence that we're seeing from the shootings, from the robberies. And most of these cases, or a high amount of these cases, the people who are perpetrating these crimes are our children. They're our youth. We just had another carjacking that happened, for example. One of the two suspects that we caught and arrested for that was 12 years old. Wow. This isn't new. This isn't a first. This isn't uncommon. So what's going on? Like, what are we doing from a public safety standpoint to see how we can keep these kids in a path where they're not out in public creating these crimes, right? Or, you know, this happened on a Tuesday night during a school night. So what's a 12-year-old doing out at 8, 9 o'clock robbing people at gunpoint? So this is a really serious problem. This is something that we have to partner with our community. And this is really, I really rely on everybody here to come with ideas. This is not about establishing blame or anything. It's really about supporting families that are really struggling to keep their youth out of trouble and keep them safe. So one of the things I really want to do here as part of this council is really hear from you about some of the ideas that you might have for us to help us do our jobs, and how we can collaborate with you, whether it's through outreach, whether it's through support for juvenile programs, trying to figure out who we can partner with. It doesn't have to be us. It doesn't have to be us. It could be other groups that are not necessarily associated with the police department. It really doesn't matter to me personally. What matters is that we're helping out families and we're helping out our children, so to make sure that they're not getting into trouble and making mistakes that ruin their lives or worse, cost them their own lives. So that's kind of important to me. The work we're doing is great. Again, the officers are, you know, crime is down across the board, except for 2 areas. And that was homicides last year in 2023 and car thefts, right? And we know for some of us might be tracking the news, some of the issues with cars being stolen, like Kias and Hyundais and A lot of times these thefts end up, these stolen cars end up being part of the vehicles that these children are using to commit these crimes. So we really have to work to curtail that as well. Anyway, that's kind of some of the things I wanted to talk about. And like I said, again, I'm interested in hearing from everybody involved, and again, thank you for having me here. And after we talk, maybe if you have any questions for me or for the officers that are here, I'm sure we'd be glad to answer as best we can. All right, I'm going to introduce you to Lieutenant Lamp. You can introduce yourself.
My name is John Lamb, and I'm the lieutenant for what used to be called the gang unit. It's now called the gun violence reduction unit, just because of the job has changed. And there's also the robbery unit. What Chief Davis is telling you is it's most often questions that I get asked is the current trends. And I mean, just living in the community, it doesn't matter if it's the South Precinct, doesn't matter if the North Precinct. The robberies, the carjackings, and the stolen cars are happening in all the precincts. I was asked to compile a bunch of statistics for a meeting just 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately, what Chief said is correct. Is that 70% of our current robberies are all being done by juveniles. And then I heard the gasp when he said the one suspect from 2 days ago was 12 years old. One addition on that, there was a second suspect. He was 13. So it was a 12 and a 13-year-old doing it. It was 2 carjackings that night. They fired the handgun off in both instances. Didn't hit anybody. But again, it shocks us. I mean, we've been doing this for a while, and I'm not that surprised when I see some of the younger, but the ages we're getting at now with the 12 and the 13-year-olds. So the units that I'm in charge of mainly do the follow-up unit. We do the follow-ups for this. As far as the shootings go, the homicide unit is at record highs, as the chief mentioned. So any shooting where somebody's hit outside of where the homicide unit takes it, the gun violence reduction unit takes it. So you can imagine this the sheer volume. The good news is a lot of people survive. So, but that doesn't, that just means we have a lot of suspects out there and a lot of victims out there. But we're seeing like across the board, it's coming across all the precincts. And then I think one of the other things I get asked a lot is, especially with the youth stuff, is what you can do as parents, what you can do as community members. One of the things we're noticing, and I know this will be, I went to a community meeting specifically on this topic, which was the hookah bar shootings that we had down here. And a couple of those were involved homicides. What we found from those investigations is a lot of this stuff is being broadcast online. So if you have a child, really monitor their social media. It's not that complicated. A lot of it, believe it or not, is one of the old tried and true ones of Instagram. It's the one that we see the most. And we'll have rival gangs that will actually friend each other on these platforms and then taunt each other on these platforms. And it's not hidden, it's not hard to find. So as a parent, just be really strict with your children's social media, keep track of it. And then as a community member, same thing. Just be aware of the trends. If you need to talk to somebody else's parent or somebody else's guardian or family member, brother, sister, just if you see it, this is the easiest way to stop it. But unfortunately, I was the 2 units I'm in charge of are the 2 things that are up in the city right now, which is violent crime. So I can, after the meeting, if anybody has specific questions about cases, I can always look up and I can get back to you as well. This year, I think, I think I want to say we're at 4 homicides for the year right now. And, but we made some significant arrests. We actually made an arrest of a homicide suspect today. And it's involving one from a couple months ago, but that was what I was spending most of my day doing before I came here. So we're making progress, and it's amazing we're making as much progress with the amount of officers we have out there right now, but the work is being done. It's just, unfortunately, it's not, it's a little bit slower than we want. It's especially the 911 response stuff's a little slower than we want. So, but yeah, but again, after the meeting, I'm more than happy if you have specific cases or instances you want to talk about. Hello, everyone. I'm Yanal Duch. I've been working with the Seattle Police Department for about 28 years now. I'm a lieutenant, administrative lieutenant under the Special Operations Bureau. A little bit about my history. My parents immigrated from Jordan, so I do come from an immigrant family. As part of my career, they found out that I was one of the few practicing Muslims in the department, and they asked me to work with the Middle Eastern community. So I started engaging in community outreach. From there, I don't know if anyone's been around long enough to remember Kim Baguki.
Yeah.
She left the East African community, and they asked me to assist. So I did that for a while, and I think about 8 years ago, I started focusing more on my work, and I left community engagement. There's a little bit of a void for our outreach for the East African community, so they asked me to step in. Yeah, I was a little reluctant because in that 8 years, I noticed that we declined in our outreach efforts, and I was not very happy with how we were treating our communities, but I'm very confident with our new chief. That is going to change. I feel like we have a lot of support through my chain of command. So I'm looking forward to restarting this. I think the things that we've done in the past were amazing with the communities. We had very extensive programs, and we had a very good relationship with the community. So I am looking forward to working with you all again.
All right, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Roberson, Seattle Police Officer of about 11 years now, and now working as a sergeant. Before I became a police officer, I grew up in South Seattle, kind of Columbia City area, and I spent a lot of time in Rainier Beach in this place. So coaching kids out at track, and then eventually getting a job working for Parks and Recreation. I started working for team programs out of South Park, and then doing some late night stuff, Rainier Beach. Eventually, I switched over to the police department when I was doing some outreach programs with my youth and some of the officers that worked in the Seattle Police Department. I thought it might be an interesting thing to kind of get in and hopefully find a way that I can kind of combine my community work with specifically youth into the police department eventually. So that's what I'm able to do now, and I'm pretty honored to have that kind of position and know that outreach is out there. So as far as me being here today, I'm curious to hear about things that people are concerned about and ways that my unit, the people that I work with, can be involved. We've done a few like youth-oriented things, some family programs, still trying to combine with Hapchamu to see what else we need to do, because I know there's still definitely work to be done, I guess I'd say, in everybody's part. So I guess, I'm a neighbor, I live around here, and I want to be, support, as best I can. So I won't say too much at the moment, but if anybody has things that they want to reach out for, specifically with youth or families, I'm kind of the person that is a good contact for that. And I'll try to, if we're leaving contact information somewhere at some point, is that going to happen?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Then I'm happy to follow up with anybody. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. እንግዲህ ባጭሩ ሁሉንም እነሱ የተናገሩትን አጠር አድርጌ ለማስቀመጥ ያህል ሁሉም በአትኩሮት የተናገሩት ወጣቶችን በተመለከተ ነው። በማስገደድ በጠመንጃ መኪናዎችን በማቆም ሰዎችን የመዝረፍ ወንጀል በጣም እየበዛ መሆኑንና ወንጀሉን ደግሞ እጅግ በጣም አሳሳቢ የሚያደርገው አሁን በቀደም የተከሰተውን ወንጀል ባለፈው ሳምንት ጠመንጃ ሰው ላይ ተኩሶ መኪና የዘረፉት የ12 ዓመት እና የ13 ዓመት ልጆች ናቸው። እና የህፃናቱን ዕድሜ ማነስ በጣም ለዲፓርትመንቱ እያሳሰበ መሆኑ፣ ሁለተኛው ምንድነው ወጣቶቹ የሚገናኙት በሶሻል ሚዲያ ነው ወንጀል ለመስራት እና የሚወያዩበት ሐሳቦችን የሚያንሸራሽሩበት በሶሻል ሚዲያ ስለሆነ ወላጆች ልጆቻችሁ ምን አይነት ሶሻል ሚዲያ እንደሚጠቀሙ በጣም መከታተል እንዳለባቸው ነው አንክረው የተናገሩት። በመቀጠልም ዋናው ቺፍ እንደተናገሩት ፖሊስ ብቻውን ይህንን ስራ ወይም ደግሞ ይህንን ወንጀል ማቆም እንደማይችል እና ከእናንተ ከማህበረሰቡ ጋር ከኮሚኒቲ ጋር እጅ ለእጅ ተያይዞ በመስራት ይህንን ወንጀል መቀነስ እንደሚቻል ነው ደጋግሞ ሁሉም የተናገሩት። ከወጣቶች ጋር የሚሰሩ ኦፊሰሮች አሉ እንደነ ሰርጀን ማቲው ሮበርትሰን ከሃይስኩል ተማሪዎች ጀምሮ ልጆችን የሚያሰለጥነው ልጅ ግብረገብ ጥሩ ዜጎች እንዲሆኑ የተለያዩ ትሬኒንጎችን ይሰጣል እና ወጣቶችን በተመለከተ ጥያቄ ካላችሁ እኔም በግል ማግኘት ትችላላችሁ። አብረን ነው የምንሰራው ላይ እና ዋናው የዛሬ ስብሰባ ዋናው ሀሳብ ከእናንተ ጥያቄዎች ካላችሁ ለመስማት ነው የመጣ ነው። የተለየ ነገር ይዛ ያልመጣ ነው። ይህንን ወንጀል ለመቅረፍ ምን ማድረግ አለብን የሚለው ከእናንተ ጋር ለመወያየት እና ከእናንተ ደግሞ ጥያቄዎች ካላችሁ ከእናንተ ለመስማት ነው እዚህ ያለ ነው እና ከአሁን በኋላ ያው መድረኩ ለሁላችሁም ክፍት ነው። Moving forward, this will be a Q&A. If anybody has any questions, the stage is yours.
Thank you, officers. Really appreciate for your time tonight. My name is Joseph Assaf from the Eritrean Community. The question I have is, most of the time, our people, especially in East Africa, would like to see somebody, in the police force. So what is the police department doing to recruit? Because I haven't seen any evidence, having a team recruiting. Because it will be better if you guys come and recruit and educate them. If they join the police force, probably will do a lot more help. When we see somebody looks like us, it's a lot more at ease than, having somebody. So from the Ethiopian, Somalian, Eritrean, and East African communities, is there anything you guys done in the past to recruit the youth to join the police force? Thank you.
I could start. I don't know all the recruitment parts. There's a lot that goes to it, but I think specifically with youth programs and being involved with kids while they're growing and seeing them do just as much good things as just like negative, right? And so I think one of the things that happens as officers, when you first start, you get used to just going to calls where typically something bad is happening and people aren't making good decisions, or it's the worst day of somebody's life, a lot of things like that. And so I think what we're trying to do is be intentional with some of our youth outreach programs and be around when there aren't emergencies so we can build up rapport and young people can kind of see themselves in the officers. So specifically with the East African community, I know there are some young people who participate in a program we have called the Police Explorers Program. Starts at 14 years old and goes up to 21. And that gives young people opportunity to do community service, learn about policing. Some want to be officers, some don't, but it teaches leadership, mentorship, and a variety of things like that. And that's one way that we've tried to get young people interested in the profession. They don't always end up being officers, like I said. Some go to different departments. So there are a few from the East African community, but unfortunately they didn't start working for Seattle, they worked somewhere else. So I think that's been a good way to try to just break down some barriers, expose people to things that they're not used to. And it's also good for officers who are used to making arrests and things like that to see that, hey, there are young people out there, they like to do things that aren't criminal related, and we can have fun with them, we can teach them, and they can teach us at the same time. So that's something I can speak on for youth, but do you guys have anything for?
Good. So coming from an immigrant family, being raised, when I told my family that I wanted to become a police officer, they weren't very happy. I think it's very typical for our families to encourage us to become doctors, lawyers, engineers, computer scientists so that we could work for Microsoft. Or so we need to kind of change that in our culture. And it's really hard because a lot of people don't understand the benefits of becoming a police officer. One of the biggest benefits for me is being in the community and helping the community. It's big. 28 years, I have a lot of stories to tell and how many people I was able to help. It's not about just putting bad guys away. It's helping people, fix the problems in their lives and being that kind of conduit to help folks. On top of that, we do have a really great salary, and it's, after a couple of years, you're going to be making
price, salaries that are very similar to these jobs. On the top of that, we have a lot of other benefits, including a pension, really good medical, really good dental. We do have a sign-in sheet. So if you provided me your email address, I am going to be reaching out to you and you're going to get inundated with recruitment information. So I'll be sending you information on our jobs that are available. And also for programs like our Explorer program, I just sent out a list to a bunch of folks. So once I have your contact, you're going to get that. Before I left the East African Community engagement, as I said, about 8 years ago, is one of my goals to get an East African festival. So I don't know if you're familiar, but I'm a part of the Arab Festival every year at the Seattle Center. They have a community-based festival that they have, and we don't have one for the East African community. So I'm hoping to work with y'all to develop that. And one of the big things that we do in these festivals is recruiting. So we typically have a recruiting booth. And on top of that, when we start to hear about your community's events, we're going to try to get someone from community engagement or from recruiting out there. So we haven't had good connections. We were under DOJ and our focus kind of went to training. So now we've got a command staff that's willing to push that outreach and engagement, and we really do want to recruit. We are down, depending on who you talk to, somewhere between 375 to 450 officers. So we have a lot of availability. We are hiring a lot of people. So if you know folks that are eligible, I'll send you the information, pass it on. It is a really good career and lots of great benefits, and it's a lot of fun. And we could arrange for like ride-alongs. I don't know if we still do the Community Police Academy. So we have a Citizens Academy as well. So even if you want to just learn more about law enforcement, or you got someone that's interested, might want to do that, and we could do ride-alongs as well. So you'll have my contact information once I have yours. Like I said, I'll send you information. So
really not much for me to add. I'm glad you asked that, because actually right after I was done talking and I passed the mic, I was like, I didn't mention that we're hiring. I never leave a meeting without saying that. So I appreciate you asking the value of having people in our community who look like us, who talk like us, who we know, who really understand the cultures. Our Seattle Police Department is a better department when we have people from diverse backgrounds that can bring so many different perspectives in there. So we do recruiting. The mayor's office has been involved in that. We are working the best ways on how we can do that. We're trying to lean into the technology and use it for good purposes as well. We heard Lieutenant Lamb talk about some of the issues where they're misusing it, but you know, anything. So encourage people if they have questions, like you have family members, to check online. SeattleJobs.gov, I think, is still the site we're using for that, if I'm not mistaken. But again, Lieutenant Booch, you know, contact him. He'll give you that information. And we really, really appreciate anything you can do, because honestly, we can do the recruiting, but our biggest recruiters are community members. There's just a lot of social issues, I guess, you know, especially with what's happened, a lot of mistrust between a lot of our communities and the police. And so anything we do to bolster to kind of really get us to engage with people who want to be police officers is great. They really want to be able to show that this is actually a cool, fun job to do, and it's rewarding. So, and you know, we can have people there at a job fair or at a community event to kind of share those stories, but we really need to get people involved. And one of the big ways of persuading some of our folks to do that is to, you know, hear that from friends, from family, from people that we respect within our own community. So please, it's a great opportunity for everyone.
I'm gonna ask the online people.
Okay.
በኦንላይን የገባችሁ ጥያቄ ካለ አንሚዩት እያደረጋችሁ አሁን መጠየቅ ይቻላል።
We have about 20 plus people virtually too.
እሺ መስቲ go ahead. Unmute. 1 second. አንድ መስቲ go ahead መስቲ
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for you being here and your concern to our community. My concern is about the gun market. Because nowadays our young generation are playing by guns as they can have access to get gun as like a candy. So if you guys if you have any possibility to revise the legal rules and the regulation of the state so that you can make strong the legal issue so they don't get easily access the gun. So I am concerning about the gun market. I don't know they get from, but it is very, very demand. There is a demand here. So please try to revise if there is any possibility, the legal rules and the regulations of the state. Otherwise, we are losing so many young generation at their early stage. So please try to concern this issue if there is any possibility. Thank you.
I want to add a quick point to that. A member from another organization was saying maybe have like an insurance or something like an added layer of barrier for somebody to get a gun. Maybe that could be one way of mitigating the problem. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll start, and anybody else feel free to come in with some ideas. You know, the police, our primary job is law enforcement. We generally don't write the laws or make the laws, but that doesn't mean that we don't partner with certain agencies, use the information we have to make them aware, share our concerns, like those concerns you just expressed, and see if there's a way to get those laws that you want in place. So, you know, we do work very well with a lot of our local city government as a city agency. You know, that's kind of where we start. I think the thing I'm most excited about is that we have 6 new council members rather. They all seem to be very pro public safety. And they're all interested in the public safety. I've met with many of them, and you know, they seem really genuine about what they want to do. And then also we've had some county council members as well that have been showing up to meetings with those same concerns that everybody here has with trains to go violence. So I think the biggest thing to do is really work within your community to see if you can engage with a lot of those lawmakers and let them know what it is that you need from them legislatively to create the laws that will really make it tougher on those who use gun violence, use guns to commit these crimes. We can definitely work with you again, provide data, partner with you in that respect. But really, it's really going to be more, it has to be probably more of a community-led campaign to get stricter and tougher gun laws. So I think that's the biggest thing we can do to kind of affect change when it comes to enforcement of gun laws. Anybody else want to have?
Oh, great. Very good. One of the other things I would recommend doing is, you know, you should have your police officers here holding everybody accountable. We should take tough questions. Your city government should take tough questions, and your prosecutor's office should take tough questions. Excuse me. One of the issues we run into in the gun violence reduction unit is it's not so much the laws that we have on the book, it's the enforcement of the laws. And I'm going to give another one here that's it's definitely on the frustrating side for me, but for the juveniles that we get that are caught with firearms, the current standard is they have to be caught and convicted 5 times in order to do a day in jail for that. So just think to yourself, 5 different times for somebody to actually be caught with a gun, and it's a very tough standard to meet. So we do have gun laws in place, but again, you have to hold the police department accountable, prosecutor's office accountable, and the city accountable. But that's definitely one of the frustrations I see. We see the repeat offenders over and over, and the arrests that we're making, they're just, we're just not getting the effect, I think, of the deterrent factor on the laws that we currently have. There could always be other laws. Chief put it, you know, pretty bluntly, is we have to be apolitical on this. We're not really allowed to make the laws, but I'm definitely seeing on my side, I'm not seeing a full effort in order to enforce the ones we have too, so.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say, like, just from some of the work we've done, particularly with the prosecutors, a lot of them have more ability to, again, kind of work with state officials to try to figure out how they're going to enforce the laws, what they're going to stand on. You know, our juvenile detention centers are limited with the amount of people they can keep. There's active movements to close them down as well as expand them. So it gets very, very complicated. And so, yeah, just again, really partnering with these different groups and inviting them to your meetings. You know, from what I've seen in a little bit of time that I've been in this position, and a lot of time that I've been doing community engagement, you know, prosecutors will definitely kind of come out and talk to you about some of the things that they're doing to help. And we already talked about getting some of our local politicians out here. So, you know, I don't know who the Washington State reps is for this particular area or the senators, but, you know, making overtures to them about what you want to see happen is important. So, you know, you have a lot of strength. You know, I'm sure we have voters in this group, or we know people who vote. So, you know, you really can speak with influence and try to get the laws that suit you and serve your community. So I would encourage you to do that.
Well, I would like to extend my appreciation to the SPD and the other departments that actually try to keep us safe. I moved to Seattle about 33 years ago from California. One of the reasons that actually pushed me to come here was the safety of the city. Look at what downtown looks like now. It's very deafening to put up your television and watch local news nowadays. I know after what has happened, what has transpired by the Black Lives Matter area, that the city of the police department in Seattle has suffered a lot of loss of human beings, the personalities, employees. But now, dealing with communities like us, how much help can it give you to reinforce these bad situations in the city? My other question is, from listening to these young criminals, what do you think is the most assessed reasoning for these kids to go do this kind of stuff? What is it? Is it from the household that they are raised from? Is it from their peers? Is it from school? Or is it only from the social group that they get these informations? What is it that you have assessed from this? Number two, the Seattle Police Department has a bad reputation about approaching different neighborhoods differently. So-called bad and poor neighborhoods would be treated differently than neighborhoods that are wealthier or had a good reputation. What would you say about that?
All right, there's a lot there, and I may go back and ask you to rephrase the question, so I apologize in advance. I think the first couple of questions tie into each other quite a bit. We've talked already about the recruitment, so I don't need to really go back into that part of it. You know, I think the biggest thing is just support. You know, through a lot of what's occurred, you kind of mentioned what happened in 2020. You know, we lost a lot of officers there. We lost a few during the COVID mandate as well. So we lost, you know, several officers there, tens of officers there. Yeah, we definitely suffered those losses. So I think the big thing is just, we really gotta push, anything we can do to support, look for opportunities to support the officers that are here. We're having a tough time retaining the ones we have. We are trending in the right direction, in terms of getting more officers, because I do believe that is a big part of the answer to making things better here. I think, last year we finished about net, don't quote me on the exact numbers, 38 officers lost, meaning we hired some officers, but we had some people that left, whether it was through separation, retirement, going to other agencies. The year before that number was -90. The year before that, it was -180. So that's bad news, but the good news is we're trending in the right direction. I think we're even now, and we all know we're only like 6 weeks into 2024, but we're moving in the right direction. So it's going to take a while to kind of build it where the numbers are becoming more positive. Hopefully, we'll get a new contract for our officers. That's kind of a big competitive, I think, to hiring folks and keeping folks here. And that'll help. But, a lot of those things are out of control. We really have to work to do what we can to control to keep people happy, keep them engaged, and deal with the community. In terms of I think what we lost and what we need to do to get back to having a more positive relationship with a lot of our communities, particularly our diverse or demographic communities. We've already talked again about hiring more officers that look like us and understand the complexities of each community and have respect for those communities. But I think the other part, where we suffered is really getting an opportunity, especially once we get more bodies on the department to really take the time to engage. With our current, when I first started community engagement in the 2000s, we had a community police team. So we had like a sergeant and several officers in each precinct who could really focus a lot of their time and engaging with the community. We still have community outreach with people like Sergeant Roberson and his team that are out there doing it citywide, but we don't have the numbers and the footprint to really work and engage community what we can. The officers that we do have, honestly, majority of the time, they're really working call to call. 911 emergency call, 911 emergency call to address these issues. We're trying to change, again, talking about what we control, what we can't, how we can try to work to free up some of those officers. So we're looking at things like changing our prioritization of calls for service, maybe looking for instances where calls where historically the police officers were sent, like a person who might be having a medical issue, they would send the police first. Maybe the fire department, who probably is going to need to provide medical treatment in those instances, should be the first one to go. Expanding our abilities to report things online or by phone, all those little things that, will hopefully add up to the ability for us to have more officers who are free, who can be visible, and when they're not handling calls, can really work to connect with the community. We've done a lot of work, I think, as an agency, with training and trying to get more people involved, in educating our officers more and how to engage with the community. One of the things I did share with you is I was a watch commander for third watch, meaning the night shift at South Precinct here for almost 1.5 years, 2 years, up until the end of 2022. And so I don't know, I haven't, one of the things as a watch commander is like, if there's complaints or anything like that, that hasn't been my experience. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen that, community members are having bad interactions with our officers. Our supervisors, our officers, they're supposed to be held to a high standard, treat everybody with dignity and respect. We have policies that pertain to bias policing. So if there's anybody who feels like they're being mistreated or treated differently because of their demographic makeup, we want to know about it. If you have any questions, if there's any concerns about that, we want to know, because if we won't know if it's a problem if we don't hear from you. And if you have to have a big conversation about how we can talk to that officer supervisor or engage, figure out how we can resolve this, because I don't want you to leave an interaction with any of our officers and feel like you weren't treated well or fairly, we need to know. That's how we learn. That's how we learn how to treat people, deal with people, treat them with respect. So I would really want to figure out if there's a way we can talk about safe ways in which you can engage us and let us know. We need to know about that. Anything else that you discussed that I might have missed or asked about that you might have missed?
When you get out of the Seattle criminals.
Oh. Yeah, in terms of that. So I think the biggest thing, and this is what I want to hear from a lot of you as well, you know, is what's going on with the youth, like how we can support them. So, and I'm sure I got to pass the mic here to people who do a lot more of that work. They can share what we're going to do, but it's all about ideas. I think the biggest thing is really supporting families. You know, when you have 12 and 13-year-olds that are out committing robberies without pointing blame or assigning blame, what is the issue, right? Is I grew up to share with myself as a latchkey kid. I don't know if that people know what that term means. Meaning my mom worked as a respiratory therapist. She worked shifts from 3 p.m. to 11. I'd get home and she was already out at work. You know, luckily I was able to stay out of trouble. But, you know, if for some parents who may be struggling with being home with their kids because they have to work long hours or they're going to school or whatever, like if there's ways as a community we can help support them, that would be great. I think every story is individual. Everybody has their own reasoning as to why. I think it's what you ask is a great question and it's complex and it's probably not the same for everyone in terms of where the fault is that, again, a 12 or a 13-year-old could be out committing robberies, to kind of stick with that situation. So I'm not sure I have the answer for that. There's a lot of smart people in here who have that, and we have a lot of people who I'm sure are parents that are in this room. I'm a parent of a 14-year-old. And we have our struggles. I love my daughter to death, but we have our struggles. So, you know, what can we do to support families, support our youth? And again, I think the last thing I want to go, I'm sorry, I'm being long-winded, is, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be with us. There's different community organizations out that work with kids that don't work with the police department. And I think that's fine. My theory on this type of stuff, when we have a complex problem, is there's plenty of work to be done by everyone when we have such a complex problem. So we definitely want to partner with anybody who wants to reach out to youth and engage. We have people like Sergeant Roberson and his team that are here to do that. But also we can identify other city and county groups that can kind of come out and engage with youth and kind of help support them out. So if they're having a problem with a child who's having a tough time, maybe we can help assist or at least make that referral to the right people that can get our children and the families that support them to help them. Anybody else want to attack this? I did. Yeah. Right around that.
Sure. Thanks for asking that question. So I was going to address a little bit when you're talking about factors that can lead to it. And it's not necessarily one thing that will cause somebody to make a decision. It's usually a culmination of things over time. Habtam and I were working with Horn of Africa Services to do a combination of presentations to youth and parents. There was over 400 youth who participated, and I don't know exactly how many parents you did, but
Close to 80 plus.
yeah. So almost, and so this is what that was is really just trying to give education and recognition. What are some things that might cause somebody to seek other young people who don't really have experience in the world to be their, like, quote unquote, like, family, right? Is it money? Is it power? Is it quick this, quick that? Is it putting, you know, pictures on social media that are showing bravado or things like
ተቋረጠ ምን ነው አይሰማም
ተቋርጧል
ተቋርጧል ተቋርጧል
አዎ እኛም ጋር ተቋርጧል ይሄው ከፈት ነው ጥጓላ ያለችውን አይደል ያልከኝ መብራት
that your leaders are experts. So we brought in some outside expert help over management. This is quite critical.
ይሰማል አሁን ይሰማል ግን
አሁን ይሰማል
ሰውየው ሲናገር ይሰማል
አይሰማንም
ኦኬ እሺ
That's the way they want to be treated. Because we recognize the way I want to be treated isn't necessarily the way you want to be treated. So our mindsets are changing, and I think you're going to see that. You're going to see better police service moving forward. Yeah, I think real quick, before the back program is just big ones. I think we've only been doing it for what, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So, you know, these officers are getting out, they're getting to meet many of the community members. They do all this before they even go to the police academy. So we really get to work to humanize them that much more and get them out there to really meet community. And so I guess my point is, you know, we're just starting this with our newer officers. I think we're really going to see the benefits of that as the years go on. So just want to touch on that. It's something we're probably not going to be able to really change overnight, but I think we're going to see those effects pay off sooner than later, because those young officers are the ones that are answering those 911 calls when you call for assistance.
Thank you for your services and so forth. I have one question. We had 2 incidents where we had to call 911 last month. And the first time, we got support. We got support after 1 hour. The second time, it's more than 2 hours that we have to wait to get the support. And this is really very long for if we have anything. So is there any way that you can improve the response of 911, police coming faster? Thank you very much.
All right. So the unfortunate truth is we are down officers. So we triage. We take care whatever's the highest priority. So if we have someone that is shot or stabbed, that's going to be our number 1 priority. So other calls are going to get delayed, and I'll be quite honest with you, we're frustrated with it too. We hate going to calls that are 2 hours, 3 hours. You know, some folks are waiting even longer, and it's very unfortunate. However, I think we're having that change. We have a city council and a mayor's office that's very supportive of public safety. They're committed to increasing our numbers, not just hiring the people that we lost, but increasing our numbers. But we need to get to that point. So we are also looking at alternatives. So if it's a non-emergency, maybe we could send somebody else other than the police for like medical emergencies. Sometimes we respond where the fire department can respond. Or there's other entities as well. We have the care unit that was as well, and they'll be handling some of our non-emergency responses. But please don't be discouraged. If you have to wait for police, I understand it's frustrating, but we do need you to report crimes. We need you to report emergencies, and just recognize the fact that we are going to prioritize. Life safety is always going to come first. So I hope that answers your question. One of the things that I'll provide for you with the email addresses, I will send out alternatives. There's a non-emergency number. There's also online reporting, and you could also do telephone reporting as well. So sometimes it might not be an emergency where you need a police officer to respond, but you need someone to take a report. So there's other options other than just having someone show up.
That specific case that he just mentioned was the day that shooting took place in West Seattle, Chiefs High School. So a lot of response was heading that way, I guess.
Oh, that happened at the same time?
Yes, same day, actually. Yeah.
There's a question through text. It says, can you ask this on behalf of me? How have you seen gun violence disproportionately impact African youth? We know the disproportionate impact on the Black community as a whole, but a large part of the Black community in Seattle are African Black immigrants. Can you speak to this difference in impact as well as potential differences in interventions? Who would like to take this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's significant. One of the things we do as an agency is we have a meeting occurs usually once a month, and it's called CompStat or CStat. We talked about the percentages over 2023, and it's high, it's disproportionate. I think Seattle right now is running about 8 or 9% African American, and we know like these African American communities looped into that. And the number is like somewhere around 40. If you look at homicides, for example, it's somewhere in like the 44% range. And I apologize, I should have that statistical data with me. Chief Diaz, he can rattle that stuff off. He has it like in his memory, but it's significantly high. Obviously, like 4 times the rate of people that are here, 5 times the rate. So it's something that we really have to work on to figure out, what are the root causes of that. Again, how can we work with families? How can we work with our communities to kind of deal with that? Because it's a great question, right? Obviously, this violence, a lot of times is perpetuated by, our own races that are causing these crimes, right? They're causing these violent crimes. Was there other parts of that question?
The reason behind it.
Yeah, in terms of the reason behind it, it's tough. I think we've heard people on our panel talk about that. and I really don't want to say that there's certain reasons for it. It's something I think every city struggles with. And it's just really something we got to work with within our own cultures and listen to each and every story, because everybody else has their own story as to terms of how they get from a point of, being a child to going into a life of crime. And so I think the biggest thing we got to do is really just try to figure out how we can work together to support our communities and keep our children, our people safe. I don't know if anybody else wants anything to share.
Okay.
You want to?
I think, let's put it out. Part of the question was there a noticeable difference with the East African community as far as, we definitely have seen an uptick with the East African, both shooting victims and the suspects. Sergeant Roberson's probably the best one here at explaining the root causes of things. But unfortunately, as soon as I heard that question, there has been an uptick. So I do want to acknowledge that we're noticing that as well. And I think, the whole purpose of this meeting is to get together and to come up, solutions and ideas and whatnot. But, we do have to acknowledge that we have had an uptick, and we're definitely having an issue here that we need to work on. So
one thing I want to kind of touch on, and this is again where we need everyone's help. A lot of the crimes that we see, right now the culture is, not to tell. And a lot of these crimes, especially trying to solve it and again get to some of those root causes, we really don't have all the information, know all the information. We really need to create a safe avenue for people who know, first of all, even before the crimes happen, who's struggling with, their family members, their children, whoever it is that are committing these crimes, and kind of let us know what we can do to help or how we can intervene. I know the city is kind of really working again, going outside the police department, having different groups like, the violence interrupters, people that can actually go out and connect with these people when they happen. Some of them are people, for example, who, maybe went to prison, or kind of in the same shoes as a lot of these people that are committing the crimes. And now they're out after they've come out from jail or prison, really responding to these scenes a lot of times right after these crimes occur, and trying to connect and figure out what's going on. And also they work to reach out to us and ahead of time, if there's hearing that there's these threats that are going on, whether it's the online things like Lieutenant Lamp mentioned, or just things that people are coming to and concerned, whether it's kids at school hearing about things that are going to happen, So I think the big thing is we just really have to figure out a way to really engage our people. There's people, again, who often know either what's about to happen or what did happen. And we need to be able to have them come forward. There's ways that you can let us know. There's numbers that we can leave that as well, in terms of hotlines that we can call. One of the things we let you know is those things can be reported anonymously. So you can let us know anonymously. You don't have to tell us who you are, how you know it. Even those tips in a lot of cases will kind of lead us to finding out what happened and getting justice for those people who were affected by the crime, people who have lost loved ones. So anything we can do to kind of encourage family, friends, again, stay connected with your children, stay connected with your young people, and share that information. I think that will go a long way to hopefully deterring these crimes before they occur, but at least helping us solve them so we can hold those accountable, get them off the street if that's the best place for them to be, and give people that are affected by violence justice.
So I just wanted to add, Chief mentioned accountability. We need to recognize that this is not the majority of our communities that are committing these crimes. These are a very small minority of our communities that are committing these crimes over and over and over again. Now, I think we do a good job as part of the criminal justice system of finding these perpetrators, but where the criminal justice system fails is stopping them once we identify who it is, whether it's, incarcerating them or finding treatment or therapy and getting them to stop their criminal behavior. And that's where we need to kind of get your help to hold the rest of the criminal justice system accountable and make sure that these folks don't repeat the same crimes in our community.
My question is on police accountability. So you said earlier that the goal is to treat people as they want to be treated or more. And that sounds great. But what happens when it doesn't go that way, right? So from what we see, it can be in the news and we hear like so-and-so police officer did this and that. And then we would think, oh my God, this is bad. And then you see that maybe it's an administrative leave. So you have your rules and we can't go there. But from where we sit, it doesn't sound fair. So on one hand, you're telling us like, yes, you have these great rules, but then we see that in some cases, there isn't really enough accountability. And we see some police officers go unpunished from where we sit. So how does that pan out?
First of all, hi, Sophia. Sophia and I have participated together in some stuff in the past with helping to improve our apartment and make things better. So it's good to see another familiar face. I think the biggest thing, we have a number of issues. So I spent almost 4 years in our Office of Police Accountability. It was a great experience for me. It gave me a chance to know many of the officers in our department, see the work that they're doing, hear the complaints from the community, kind of look and investigate and see what happened. I will tell you there's a very low percentage of complaints that are sustained. And I don't know, every incident's different. So whether somebody feels like they were treated unfairly or the officer was rude or not professional, all these complaints, again, as I said earlier in the meeting, we need to hear about it. We need to know about it. There's a number of things that all of us can do. Again, the first part is making those complaints. We'll fully investigate it and we can let you know what the disposition is. If at any point you feel like you didn't get the results you need, or there's a question about the decision, or you have any issue with that, there's ways you can make an appeal. One of the things we can maybe do is meet the OPA director, Gino Betts. Director Betts and his staff are really committed to holding our officers accountable. They will come out and kind of explain some of their processes. They can give you some statistical data. I think it would be good for that information to come from them. And you can ask those pointed questions that you have, because at the end of the day, we're here for customer service. We're here to serve you. And if we're not serving you properly, again, we need to know about it. We need to hold our folks accountable. I really think that's it. I'd really like to see if I could maybe for the next meeting, reach out and see if Director Betts and his team would come out here and do that. But I think for every individual, again, if you're not satisfied with the investigation or the disposition of it, we'd like to know about it and hear about it. They're really working as we worked as an agency, and OPA Director Betts is too, of being transparent. They have a website, for example. So every time you call and you make a complaint, there's a specific case number that's assigned to that case, and you can track it. So you can talk to the investigators to see where the status is of the case. Sometimes it takes a few months depending on the information. All the officers that are out on the street, they should be wearing body-worn cameras. We should really be able to have video documentation of the interaction and how that went. And that's been a valuable tool for seeing exactly what happened and trying to get some sort of closure. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding, right? We already talked about, how, some folks feel like they haven't been treated right by officers. Is it true misconduct that needs to be addressed is one thing? Is it something that we can learn from and handle better? One of the things that OPA does often is mediation. And that's something they're really trying to push. So it may just be as simple as getting the officer and the people that were affected with that call in a room to kind of discuss it. They'll actually bring in like a mediator that's not with the police department, usually it's like a retired judge or something like that. And they kind of have that tough conversation. And I've been a part of that process in the past, and it really worked to, a tough misunderstanding between myself and the person that made the complaint against me. And to an hour and a half later, we're hugging each other and getting an understanding about why I did what I did and, how we perceive things. So there's different results that I hope can bring justice. When we talk about justice, if we go around this room and we ask everybody what justice means or what treated fairly means, we're probably going to have different answers because we're all different, right? In terms of what we want and what we expect from each other and what we expect from our police department. So OPA tries to provide that. So I think that's something we should probably consider doing is having OPA kind of show up and kind of share some information with you and talk more about their process.
So as a part of my work in community outreach, I've had to discuss quite a few incidents that brought a lot of attention to our department. And unfortunately, what I've learned is what the community gets is typically provided by an attorney that's representing the clients, and they are trying to portray this in the worst possible light. So with anything that you see, there's two sides to the story, and unfortunately, the public usually gets one side. That doesn't mean that there aren't cases that are legitimate. We have fired officers. I was in HR for the last 2 years, and we did fire quite a few officers for allegations. As the chief mentioned, a lot of the complaints are not sustained, which means that they didn't find the officer doing wrong, according to what the complaint was. That does not mean that that was not an opportunity for a lesson. So typically, whenever there's a complaint, there's a dialogue that happens, usually with the supervisor and that officer, on how we could do better. So it's always a learning experience for us. It's a way for us to improve, even if the complaint is not sustained. So I'd ask you is anytime you see something, a complaint lodged against the police, look at who's telling that story and try to get the other side. Absolutely. We do have bad officers. We have bad officers across the nation. But I would say in any population, you have about a 5% bad actors that represent that community poorly. I think we do a pretty good job with our backgrounds, with our hiring process, that we reduce that to about 1%, but that's still 1%, of 1,000, that's like 10 bad officers out there. I wouldn't say that necessarily that they're committing crimes, but they're not treating our community members as well as they should. So we constantly are training, and I'll give you guys the information for our Office of Professional Accountability. It is a lengthy process. If there's a serious allegation, the first step is to review to see if it's a criminal matter. And I know a lot of people get frustrated with this, but as soon as it's a criminal matter, OPA steps aside and they allow the prosecutor to handle the investigation. So they take care of the criminal matter first. And if it's no longer a criminal matter, they will investigate it. And I have seen people that have were not found guilty for a crime, but then the OPA does their investigation and we end up firing that officer based on the evidence that we have that wasn't enough to indict charges, but it was enough that we didn't feel that they were a fit for the department anymore. So, and we don't publish that a lot. And I don't think we're really good at telling our side of the story as well. I think we're getting a little bit better, especially when it comes to officer-involved shootings. But I think we could probably step that up with anything that reaches high profiles. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit. Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to make this a dialogue, but you guys are in a position of power, right? So when you say like it's a small percent of police officers that are bad, then that's huge for us. So it's not like a community organization where, you know, a few percent of us are not doing our job right. You guys come with a position of power and much more is expected of you. So just to put that out.
And I want to be clear. I hope we're not coming off as downplaying that. I understand and totally get it and agree. Like we have authorities that the average person doesn't have. We can take your liberty. We can search you without a warrant. Like there's a lot of things that we can do under the color of law in terms of like, what our ability is. So we take any complaint seriously. I think for me, the biggest thing is if you have a specific incident and you want answers, we're here. You can call me, you can call anybody, and we can figure out how we can get you the answers to needs that you need. So you know what happened in this particular incident. We want to manage perceptions. And I think a lot of it is telling our story. I think when we give you the percentage or the statistical data, it's not to downplay and say how great our officers are as much as it's just to say, this is what the data tells us. And we want to make sure we're accurate in that. The truth is, we hear about a lot of the bad things that happen, and we should. That's part of keeping everybody or holding everybody accountable. I think where we need to improve is showing the good work that our officers do daily, because that always doesn't show up on the 6 o'clock news. So I think I'm hoping that's given some context. I don't want to make it sound like we're making excuses. We're not. We hold our officers to a high standard, and we definitely can always do better. And we strive to do that, and we will continue to do that. Do you have anything? Yeah.
So one of the things I want to make clear that a lot of people don't understand is there's a little bit of a belief that we hide folks that commit crimes. For example, we had a officer that was running drugs. The reality of it is we don't know. We don't know until they get caught. And then we go after them because it reflects poorly in our community. And to me personally, the way I reflect on this as a Muslim, back after 9/11, people are asking me, is like, why aren't your community members pointing out the terrorists? It's like, well, we don't know. They don't wear they don't tell us what they're going to do. We had something happen at the Redmond Mosque where the janitor there was plotting something and none of them knew because he doesn't share that information. And it's the same thing in law enforcement. If we have someone that's behaving badly, a lot of times we're not able to act until we know that they're doing this. And like I said, we've had officers arrested. We had officers that served jail time. We had, I remember a while ago, we had an FBI investigation on one of our officers. It does take a while. And, if they're behaving like criminals, we are investigating them like criminals. And that process does take a little bit of time. And I know that time gets frustrating, but it's just part of the process. And it's how we do the criminal justice system. It is slow, it's methodical, because we don't want to, just like from your community, we don't want to incarcerate someone wrongly. So we do try to build up evidence and show that this, if a crime's been committed, we want to have all the evidence to present. If not, then we have the OPA take a look at it. And, again, sometimes if crime isn't proved, we still have enough evidence to dismiss them as an officer. And again, we don't make that overly public, but we do fire officers. There is repercussions when you do bad things. So.
Thank you. With the uptake in gun violence that's been happening in Seattle, and I know that you keep on saying it's like Seattle, but this is a King County issue. It's been flooding around for like the past 2 years. And one thing that I've never seen from any police department in King County is the coalition of what does safety look like? How are you working with Tukwila? How are you working with Kent? How are you working with Federal Way, CTAC, CTAC to ensure the safety of community members? What does that look like? I've been pretty disappointed to see there hasn't been a coalition from any of the police departments to say, this is our stance on gun violence. For Christ's sakes, even Washington State Patrol, there's been more shootings on the freeway over the past couple of years than there's ever been. So the question is, how are you working with the other cities to make sure that we are working to end gun violence and ensuring safety for our community folks? So that's for the city programs as well as Washington State Patrol. Thank you.
Yeah, the easiest way to address this is we do work with every other department. We're working, if you saw the Tukwila homicide, I think it was the Costco 2 weeks ago. We're definitely involved in that case right now. That involves multiple cases within Seattle, Tukwila. Today's arrest operation I was part of, we went all the way down to Olympia. We're in Tacoma, we're in CTAC. We work with every other department. We have a network of email for anything that we get, especially it started off is when we speak the gang unit, but as far as the gun violence reduction unit now is anytime we get a suspect, anytime we get a link or we're unsure of someone who he is picture wise, we share it with other departments. There's an active group that gets together. We have task force mostly built through the federal agencies. For example, we have officers in the robbery unit that are involved in an FBI task force. It has members of the State Patrol on it, has members of Tukwila on it, has members of King County on it. We do share quite a bit. In fact, if we didn't share, we'd be in a world of hurt, to be honest with you. One of the things that has been a real big active, and the current chief has really pushed this, is what we call NIBIN, which is we categorize every shell casing we find now. And we run it through the Washington State Patrol for testing. And I get those hits every day, probably about 15 a day. And the first thing I get is if we present we have a shooting, let's say down here on the Rainier Valley, that bullet casing will get run through the computer, and I get a report that the same firearm was used in Tacoma, same firearm was used in Renton. We link all those cases together. So yes, we could always work harder and more together. Not all departments are created equal, but there is a very, I would say, close fraternity of officers that work together. On the patrol side, it's a little more secular as far as patrol handles within their own precincts, their own groups. But on the detective level, it definitely is. We're very regional with it. I can almost guarantee you that a lot of the shootings we have in let's say South Seattle, your suspects are not going to be from Seattle. They're going to be from Federal Way. They're going to be from Burien, and vice versa. They call us all the time with suspects that live here that are making shootings in those places. So I can categorically tell you that there is quite a bit of cooperation between the investigation units on.
Yeah, just to add to that, especially when we talk about the leaders of these agencies, one of the things we do is the chiefs for King County and the sheriffs meet monthly. We usually meet down at the police academy in Burien. Yeah, and it's just a King County agency, so we'll meet once a month, and these are the kind of discussions we have, you know, as well. How can we work more effectively? Because we're all experiencing the same counties, as you know, he kind of pointed out. A lot of these crimes, they start in one city and end in another, or there's multiple robberies or shootings that affect multiple jurisdictions. And you know, part of that coalition, we also bring in everybody that's responsible for law enforcement and public safety, whether it's, again, the people that were there with the academy, as well as like the prosecutors as well, because we'll kind of network and figure out, hey, maybe not even the police officers may not be talking to each other well, but maybe even some of the prosecutors. So how can how can they work together again so we can really put our information together? We also talk about not just arresting people, right, but justice. So last week alone, Lieutenant Brandon James, who leads our Before the Badge program that he mentioned, went out and did a presentation on that. And that's a program that's getting a lot of attention because, you know, anything we can do to kind of connect and to kind of share what we're doing, not just from a law enforcement perspective, but also from a officer development perspective, you know, is all things that help to contribute with the safety of our communities. So yeah, we really do information share. And then we also do that on a state level as well. There's a Washington State Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, rather. We meet twice a year. So we even expand our networking abilities, learn some of the technologies they're using, some of the processes. We try to steal what we can. If it's working in their communities, we can kind of use those tools, hopefully, to keep people safe. So we network. We network on enforcement. We network on prosecution. We network on legislation as well. You know, like whether it's certain agencies will try to see if they can pass like tax levies, for example, that can increase the amount of officers that we can get on their respective departments, or training that they can get for their officers, or technologies they can use to help people and keep them safe.
Well, yeah, they touched up on the gun violence aspects of things, and I want to touch up on the community relations aspects of things. Back when we had a robust community engagement, and we're working really well with our communities, we actually extended past our boundaries in Seattle. I'm hoping that we will bring that here to our community as well. I'll give you an example. When I was with the Middle Eastern community, we included the Sikh community because they were the largest targets for Islamic hate. However, they didn't have a very strong foothold here in Seattle. They were actually located in Renton, and they had zero relationship with the Renton Police Department. So much so that they kept inviting the Renton Police Department to their events, and they refused to attend. So we actually drove down to Renton, went to their Gurdwara, and attended some of their events. And once Renton found out we were doing this, they started questioning us in our relationship with their community. And then they started stepping in and taking our role over with that community. So we spread a little bit of that community engagement, because the most important thing, you guys are our backbone when it comes to solving crimes, when it comes to crime prevention. And we can't do that without your cooperation. So we understand that some agencies are a little lacking, especially in their community engagement. So if you know areas that need help, we're going to be able to step in and assist. We've done that in Bothell. We've done that with Port of Seattle. We've done that with King County. So we're looking forward to assisting with you guys, with your communities as well. in the greater Seattle area. So don't look at it as just a boundary here.
Okay, thank you. Before I say this, sorry, I want to check something. This meeting is going through Zoom and it is getting broadcasted to people through Zoom, am I right? And is it getting recorded?
Yes. Yeah.
It is. Okay, then hopefully I will try to speak without spilling the beans. I would dearly appreciate it.
We can do that.
Therefore, one way to do this is to distance this from, right?
Stop it here.
Okay, I have 2 points. 1 point, thank you, you brought it up, but I will expand it a little bit. Therefore, I say, is he reading my brain? And I'm so thankful. The first one is, I understand how much Seattle police are stretched from my personal experience. I had 13 911 calls at my community just to serve me from December, I think, 15 up to January 10, in less than a month. And what I learned is the police officers, they do not respond on time. I went to get police report from Seattle Police Headquarters, and twice the station was closed because